Okay, this is now the 5-minute tarot for the 16th of June 2017, and I I've been wondering what to do, and I couldn't think of anything to do. So I thought I'll pick a card and see what I get. And then I thought this could be useful for you, because when you don't know what to do, I mean by that, when you don't know quite what to do with a card, or maybe you've got half an hour and you want to do some study of the tarot, and you can't think of a question, and you haven't got a question you want to ask, and you don't know anybody with a question to practice with. What you can do is maybe try this and see what happens. I don't have a question, and normally I would suggest or recommend that you have a question, but I don't at this point. So I'm going to walk you through, or maybe you could follow along with what I'm doing, what I'm thinking as I pick a card at random and see. I thought I'll pick a card and see what it is, and I'll take it from there. So I shuffled for a moment, and then I picked a card, and I got the Queen of Swords reversed. So what does this mean, or what is it telling me? And I remembered a comment that Dale left a couple of days ago, or maybe yesterday, and it had to do with how with any particular card, you've got such a wide range of possible meanings and possibilities that you can get lost in the possibilities of cards, or individual cards, or combinations of cards. And I left a reply to that comment, and it's true enough that that any one card can have lots of meanings, or a wide variety of meanings. But instead of thinking like that, you turn, let's say I got that Queen of Swords reversed, and I thought, it's the Queen, it's not the page. So I got one card, there's 77 other cards that I didn't get. So for instance, I didn't get the page, or a page. So my thinking, my ideas, they're not about youth and inexperience, because that's what the page represents. But it's a queen who is older and presumably wiser, even though she's upside down. So we're dealing with maturity. Or if this were an actual question, or with an actual questioner, and this was, let's say, a card that came up, we would be dealing with maturity. Or maybe it's incorrect recognition of maturity, right? Because it's a queen but upside down. So it may be that you ought to act older, you ought to act your age, but you're older and you have a certain amount of power, but you're not using it, or you're using it unwisely, or you're using it in the wrong direction. So in some way there's something wrong, because the card is upside down. It's one way of looking at it. So we've got a Queen of, in this case, Swords. So it's not a page. So it's not about immaturity or youthfulness or inexperience. It's also not the Eight of Swords as an example. So the Queen of Swords is not about being stuck or being hemmed in by circumstances. So we might think that maybe the Queen of Swords is reversed because she got stuck. And that could relate in some way to the Eight of Swords. But that's not what's important with the Queen of Swords reversed. It's not, because we're looking at what she is and what's going on, not how she got into that position. So she could have got into that position via the Eight of Swords, and her sword being upside down can be a reaction or a response to the fact that she got into a stale situation, or one where she was stuck, and in some ways the only way out of it, or the way out that seemed reasonable, was to take the sword and maybe cut out, but maybe she cut out the wrong thing, or she cut out the wrong person, because the sword is upside down. So the being stuck doesn't really, and also it's not the Three of Cups. So the Queen of Swords is not about celebration. So when you've got a card, I'm not saying go through 77 other things, it's not, but it can give you a way into what the card is about by remembering that, yes, there are lots of possibilities, but there's not an infinite number of possibilities. You're actually, if you think of it, that it's not the Three of Cups, it's not the Eight of Swords, it's not a page, it's not judgment, it's not the devil, it's not all these other types of lessons or circumstances or conditions, but it's the Queen of Swords upside down. So then I thought of a follow-up question for the Queen of Swords. Then the phone rang. Oh no, I picked the King of Cups. Then the phone rang and I answered it, and then I forgot my question. So we've got at this point, and this can happen to you as well, where you pick a card and you pick another card just because you pick another card. Maybe you have a question, maybe you don't. Maybe you've got a follow-up, maybe you don't. Maybe you forget to write it down. So I got the King of Cups. So I've now got the Queen of Swords reversed and the King of Cups upright. So I look at those two and what do I do with that? Maybe if we were dealing with a real person and a real question, we would think, okay, don't be like the Queen of Swords because she's upside down. Do be like the King of Cups. So be cups, not swords. So be a container of some sort and hold stuff and be receptive and be like a cup instead of wanting to take action. So with the King of Cups, the contrast between cups and swords is with cups, you're receptive. With swords, you're active and maybe aggressive or going out and making things happen. But with the King of Cups, first check out what's going on and get an idea of what the dynamics are or what's possible or what's feasible, then take action. And maybe that's the problem. The Queen of Swords reversed and the King of Cups, you've been taking action before you had all the information. Taking action, the Queen of Swords reversed, before you had all the information, is the receptiveness of the King of Cups. So that King of Cups made me think of water, and the King of Cups is sitting on the ocean. And I remembered that quote or idea from Bruce Lee. Remember Bruce Lee, the Kung Fu incredible fighter fellow? Because I remember reading this quote from him once, and it was something like, be like water. So I Googled be like water Bruce Lee, and I have to read, I've got this note on screen and I'll read it to you, because what he said was, be like water making its way through cracks. Do not be assertive, but adjust to the object, and you shall find a way round or through it. If nothing within you stays rigid, outward things will disclose themselves. Empty your mind, be formless and so on, shapeless like water. If you put water into a cup, it becomes a cup. You put water into a bottle and it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes a teapot. Now, water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend. That was a longer quote, but it's just the idea with cups, you're being flexible, whereas with swords, you're being assertive. With swords, you can't really bend a sword that much, but you can be like water and adapt and take on the shape of the circumstance that you find yourself in. So with the King of Cups, adapt to the circumstance. So again, depending, maybe it's a bad marriage or a bad relationship or a bad work situation. So with the King of Cups, the advice might be adapt to what's there rather than try and change things. First, get the hang of it and adjust yourself to fit the circumstances. Because if you take action, represented by the Queen of Swords upside down, then it's not going to work. And then I thought, okay, what is this about? What's the solution, let's say? And I picked a third card and got the Empress upright. And I thought, that's quite interesting, this combination of cards. Because the Empress is in the Queen of Swords is holding a sword in her right hand. The Empress is holding also a straight, inflexible piece of metal, but it's an anchor, the Egyptian symbol of life. So she's got a staff or a rod type thing in her hand, as does the Queen of Swords, but they're different. So whereas the Empress is holding the symbol of life, the sword can be life or death, right? You can protect or you can attack. So the Queen of Swords reversed is a bit like death, or using the sword to kill or to cut out or to get rid of. Whereas the Empress is more, let's give life. and let's be sociable, and let's get along with each other, and let's be friendly, and let's enjoy being in life. And the King of Cups might be telling us how to do it by, first of all, being receptive to what the circumstances actually are. So that's me finished, but we got three cards, and they kind of tell the story. But I think it's interesting that we now maybe see a connection between the Empress holding the anchor in her right hand and the Queen of Swords holding a sword in her right hand, and the King of Cups holding a cup in his right hand. But just the two women and the difference between them. So it can give you ideas about what to think, or maybe if you've got this is what you can do. If somebody's got a situation they're not sure about, maybe pick 3 cards for what's going on, and then talk about it, and then pick another. Maybe you come up with a follow-up question or an idea, because maybe you choose one card and then you think, okay, what's the solution? And you pick a second card to represent the solution. But then maybe you want to know what's it all about, so you pick a third card. And depending on the cards that you get, it can be you make up a story, or you think about what you could say to somebody who got these 3 actual cards. And it's practice, and it's allowing you to see connections between cards that you maybe hadn't noticed before. But it's also giving you practice at putting together more than one card, and two or 3 cards, and seeing how they connect with each other, or how they relate to each other, or the kind of story that they tell when you put all 3 together. Okay, that was it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again. Okay, bye-bye.